She could hear every thought, but only a human spoke to her heart. Lysra was born into a world where silence was impossible. The Elthis, her people, were born with minds open as oceans, each thought a ripple felt by all. From birth, an Elthis child was immersed in the endless flood of communal consciousness. No secrets, no private fears, no soft joys tucked away. Their cities were designed to flow in perfect harmony, their music composed by collective minds, their debates held without words. They called it the Great Stream. In this stream, Lysra was exceptional. She could not just hear the conscious thoughts, but also the echoes beneath, the flickers of memories, the unformed desires, the restless regrets that even the most disciplined elders could not suppress. Her mind became a net, catching everything. At first, they revered her as a prodigy, but reverence turned to fear. They saw her as a threat to their delicate unity, a soul too attuned, too intimate with the hidden currents. In a society where every thought flowed freely, Lysra was drowning. At gatherings, she would double over, clutching her head as waves of silent screams and half-formed worries surged through her. She fled to the high peaks of Caratha's spires, hoping the thin air would muffle the minds below. But even there, the stream followed. Then the humans arrived. Their first envoy ship landed like a falling star, a rumble across the snowy mountains. The Elthis watched them with cautious curiosity. They had heard of humans, fragile creatures trapped in individual skulls, each mind an island cut off from the currents. They pitied them at first, calling them the Silent Ones. But humans brought with them warmth and laughter, stumbling attempts at trade, and stories told with their lips and eyes, not shared in mind. They fumbled through negotiations, tripping over social nuances, never realizing that the Elthis could hear their every diplomatic calculation. Lysra watched from the ridge above, fascinated. Here were creatures who lived alone inside themselves, who chose every word carefully, who painted meanings with expressions instead of casting them out to the stream. When she finally approached their camp, they nearly fled, shocked by her sudden appearance and luminous gaze. Only one stayed, Captain Elias Monroe. He stood there in the twilight, breath fogging the air, eyes wide but steady. He did not think words at her. He did not even try. Instead, he simply bowed slightly and opened his hands, a gesture universal in its gentleness. To Lysra, it was like a sudden hush after a lifetime of storms. For the first time, there was no crashing flood of thoughts, no echoes of fears or hidden guilt. Just quiet. Elias offered her a seat by the fire. She had never felt heat on her skin in such an intimate, direct way. Every warmth before had been shared as an abstract sensation through the stream. Now it licked her fingers and cheeks, private and real. They tried to speak. She stumbled over human words, her voice unsteady from disuse. He listened, patient, his mind a calm sea she could not enter. Each moment with him felt sacred, a boundary she had never known she craved. At night, when the other humans slept, she sat by Elias's side and listened to the way he hummed softly to himself. His mind remained his own, quiet, self-contained. It felt like standing at the edge of a still lake under starlight. Days turned into weeks. Lysra learned human words, not by reading thoughts, but by watching his lips, his hands, the crinkle at the corners of his eyes when he laughed. He carved small wooden shapes for her, taught her to cook over flame, shared the taste of bitter tea. For the first time, each experience belonged only to her, unfiltered and untouched by countless minds. In those moments, she realized that knowing every thought is not the same as understanding a soul. Her people thought they had perfect connection, but their unity left no space for mystery, no room for the precious gift of earning trust and learning slowly. One evening, as the auroras spread like silk across the sky, Lysra reached out and took Elias's hand. She felt its warmth and roughness, the scars along his knuckles. And then, impossibly, she felt something else, a soft pulse that wasn't thought, wasn't language, wasn't memory. It was a kind of silent invitation, an unspoken promise. She could not read it. And that was perfect. In that instant, Lysra wept, truly wept, not because she heard the sorrow of others, but because her own heart finally had space to speak. Elias brushed the tears from her cheeks without asking why, content to let her hold her silence. Later, when the other Elthis approached to reclaim her, demanding she return to the stream and abandon this primitive isolation, she stood beside Elias. She spoke aloud, her voice echoing off the rocks. "I have heard every thought," she said, her words trembling but fierce, "but only here have I heard my own." The elders recoiled, unable to grasp that a single mind could stand apart without dissolving in loneliness. They left her there on the mountain, muttering of her madness. Lysra watched them disappear, then turned to Elias. In that quiet, she felt whole, not a net catching the world's pain, but a single flame burning bright. Together, they built a small cabin against the cliff face, a place where she could learn the joy of private moments. She learned to paint, to shape her emotions into colors rather than words. Elias showed her how to fish in the icy streams, how to laugh at small mistakes. They spoke little, and yet shared more than her entire species had shared in centuries. She discovered the joy of secrets, of quiet glances, of the small shiver of anticipation before speaking one's mind. And she realized that love is not a broadcast to the universe, but a whispered vow, soft enough that it might be missed if not cherished. Lysra had spent her life drowning in the great stream, believing herself doomed to carry every stray thought. But in the end, it was the silent human, the one mind she could not enter, who taught her that real connection lies not in knowing every corner of another's mind, but in choosing to cross the space between hearts again and again. And there, at last, she truly heard,